So in the past, research was very much, that was the area of discipline within the media business that was built around developing consumer insights, like learning about what consumers love or want or are passionate about. And it was all, for the most part, pretty much survey-based. So there were these big companies that for many, many years had established themselves in the media business. They would build giant panels of people across the country or across the world. One of those companies might be Ipsos, another company named MRI and Simmons. These companies still exist today. Another one that you may have heard of, like people in the real world tend to hear about, the Nielsen company. The Nielsen company is the one that does all the TV ratings, and they've got like 40,000 homes across the country that are constantly measuring what people are watching. And there are monitors in the living rooms of those homes and in the other rooms of those homes to just have a sense of what people are viewing in the TV space. And then there's companies that do that for magazines, and there's companies that measure that for websites, et cetera, et cetera. As the world has gotten far more digitized, almost every interaction that anybody has today is in some way, some form or fashion, enabled by technology. There's a lot less static interaction, like turning the page of a magazine. It's much more, paging through something on your mobile phone, or moving through something on your TV screen, or even like when you're driving by a static billboard. There are companies that literally have panels of people who have allowed them to measure their mobile signals about where they're going to be in the country, and they're counting the number of people whose mobile phones drive by that billboard. So everything that can be electronically measured is electronically measured. And there are ethical ways of that happening, and there are unethical ways of that happening. In the marketing world, there is a huge desire to make sure that nobody is doing anything that a consumer would not be comfortable with them doing with the data that they collect about people, right? So what I think is important for everybody to know is, when you go on a social platform, when you go on a marketer's website, or any website for that matter, or any app or anything electronic, it's being measured somehow. And generally it's being measured through some series of permissions that you have given through the times that you purchased an app. You were given one of those ridiculously long contractual looking things to read, and then at the end you just scroll down and you say, I agree. Well, there's a lot in those things that are basically saying, hey, if you're going to use this app of ours, we would like to be able to collect this kind of data about you. You have the option of not having us collect that data. It might, and sometimes they'll try to explain, it might compromise the functionality of the app that we're using for you. So we kind of prefer that you do, agree to it. And most of the time, we find people are agreeing to this stuff on a very widespread basis. That can be looked at positively and negatively. What I would say is, in the world today, we're probably only a third or a half of the way to the point where everything is really, really clear to consumers, and everything is really, really upfront between those that gather data and those that give it. Right now, everybody knows that they're giving permissions, but they don't quite know what they're giving permissions about. They really don't know the extent of it, and nobody wants to read those really long legal documents. So for the most part, data is being collected everywhere, and for the most part, it's permissioned. And that means that that means that those people in the marketing industry or in the data industry are gathering that all up. Now, they're not trying to figure out what Joe Smith is doing in his home on any particular given day. What they're looking for are groups of people that might look like Joe Smith. And when you're able to measure things across millions and millions of people, whether that's across a country or across, maybe just on one platform like Amazon, or even across the world, the granularity of that data, is so much smarter than what the surveys of the past were allowed to teach us. And it allows us to be so much more specific and helpful with the messaging that gets placed in front of you from any particular brand. At the end of the day, the goal of a marketer is to gather as much data as possible, to get as much knowledge about you and others that look like you as possible, so that when they speak to you, it makes sense to you and it speaks to you instead of annoying you, or instead of not feeling like it was there for you in the first place. Everybody's goal is to be relevant and non-intrusive. Now, at the end of the day, a lot of this is done through technology platforms. And technology, while it's super smart and it's super scalable, you can do things across millions and millions of touch points using technology. Technology isn't human. So I think all of you guys would have some example of where it seemed like, you know, you made a purchase of a pair of socks online or something, or maybe you purchased a water bottle and you started to get, you know, advertisements on your mobile phone for water bottles for like a year and a half. Well, yeah, that's why we're only a third of the way or halfway to where we need to be. And it's not optimal because everything is still being done through technology. And we as an industry have only gotten so far in our ability to give you the most optimized and best experience possible. But the intent of it is all good. The intent of it is give you a good experience and encourage you to want to purchase the product that we're selling. So that's the data gathering element of it. And what are we gathering? We're gathering information about your media usage habits. Like what do you spend the most time with every day? What platform is your favorite? And sometimes you might have a favorite platform, but the messaging opportunity is really advertising in that platform because the opportunity is too fleeting or it doesn't even exist, like Netflix, like I mentioned. We're also learning about your purchase behaviors. So when you buy things online, that gets recorded. I mean, everything that you do is getting recorded. And when you start to add together millions and millions of occurrences, you look for trends. What kind of people, you know, were more receptive to this ad than others? And then what the company will do is they'll start to make strategic shifts in that. Remember that big media plan I talked about? Once it's going, it doesn't just happen the way that we said it was going to happen at the start. We're measuring it all the way through the campaign. And as we learn about what groups of people are responding to, we are making tweaks and changes and moving advertisements from one place to another, or changing the kind of advertisements that people are seeing to make sure it's the best possible experience and that we can drive the best possible business result. To answer your other question, Elizabeth, I'm going to admit, I don't think I'm going to be able to think of a great influencer. David Dobrik, there you go, influencer on the spot. Because my kids spend a lot of time with influencers, but I have risen through the ranks to the point where I don't get to be the one talking to all those influencers right now. But there are so many people that I know you all talk to, or not talk to, but you all spend time with on your devices who are doing some cool stuff. They're creating awesome memes, or they have a fantastic rendition on TikTok where they're doing something super creative and you just can't believe how good it is. You want to imitate it yourself. Or it's a person whose videos that are created every week, and you're a subscriber to their channel and you're watching that video. There's all sorts of ways that influencers interact with you. And the most amazing thing about influencers is they're programmers, but they really value their personal connection with their audience members. They want each of you to think that they're talking to you, and they do all sorts of their own research about you to make sure that when they are programming to you, that it's interesting to you and that you would want to continue your subscription with them and watch more of their videos. And so what we try to do for a given marketer, let's just say we're trying to market for a pair of new sneakers. You know, Nike's a great example of, they just have the coolest model where they're dropping a new, like, unusual looking or amazing looking, or kind of sometimes super ugly, but set of pair of sneakers that, like, half of you guys are waiting for that thing to drop, you know, so that you can buy it before it's sold out. But a lot of times you're finding out about those sneakers because one of your influencers had them on 2 weeks ago, way before the drop came out, because they did deal with that influencer or an athlete It's all about aligning with talent, and that's part of the media business too. And we value those relationships a lot because you guys care about what they're wearing or what they're saying or what they're advocating for, and you have they have a lot bigger impact on your decision to buy a product often than the advertisements we're throwing at you. So it's like a super advertisement, and for that reason, they tend to be expensive too.